I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Andrew Moran, and James Fife. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, 9/11, is the homeland really secure? Memories, predictions, and random thoughts on that beautiful September morning back in 2001. Biden's Titanic moment. He's sinking fast. Latest poll shows the president is headed straight for the iceberg. Rolling Stone, no sympathy for the devil. Should the magazine leave politics alone and go back to covering Mick and Company? Exclusively in our member zone, Afghanistan, back to the Stone Age. Did the Uniter-in-Chief just lose American lives in the worst American military exit since maybe forever? And finally, we'll play around in our segment just for fun, political worst-case scenarios. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative Five. The 20th anniversary of 9/11 seems to have brought us full circle. Once united, America is now bitterly divided. The Taliban appears to be back and bigger than ever, and Americans are right to wonder, how long will the homeland stay secure? Meanwhile, we look back and remember, where were we? Where were you? And what have we accomplished in the 20 years since that fateful day? The president is being called killer-in-chief by some family members of 9/11 victims. Pretty harsh. Other folks seem to have forgotten the day. Heck, even one of our sitting Congress members brushed it off as a day when some people did, quote, something. So much to unpack. Jeff, a lot has changed since the trade towers fell, the Pentagon was bombed, and an airplane went down in rural Pennsylvania. What's your take on the situation going forward?
You know what's interesting, Lisa? Yesterday, I went back and I found an interview with President Joe Biden when he was just a senator on September 12th, 2001, the day after we were attacked and lost 3,000 people. He was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And the Biden that we saw back then is a lot different from the one that we're seeing now, especially in relation to the Taliban. When he was speaking with Charlie Rose, he was talking about how, and we didn't really know who had done the attack yet, but he was saying whoever it was, we were going to get him. We wouldn't respect the sovereignty of any nation harboring them, and we would do it unilaterally if we had to, even if our allies told us not to. He was very hawkish. Everybody was back then. We had just gotten attacked. But to contrast to his approach to the Taliban now, where he is essentially kowtowing to them, and even before the August 31st deadline passed, he was allowing the Taliban to basically tell him, no, you guys got to be out, because they were talking about potentially extending the deadline to get more people out. And after the Taliban came out and said, nope, you're not going to do that, Biden was like, oh, okay, whatever. That is a huge difference from 20 years ago. So that is the main difference that I'm noticing. And I'm sure there are even other areas in which things have changed when it comes to how we handle things when it comes to foreign policy.
So you're saying a politician has changed his mind. Jim, what a shocker.
Well, hey, maybe it's just that these days he's more used to being told what to say and to whom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where do you see this going, Jim? I mean, let's remember Biden planned to do the pullout right before 9/11. So now he's reaping what he's sown.
Yeah, but it's not just Biden reaping what he's sown. We've got a lot of people left over there that are also reaping what he has sown. This is Biden's deadline. He came up with the date. Where do I see
everybody's blaming Trump if they can get away with it.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people left over there, and I just hope we get everybody home.
Well,
this is bad for Biden politically, but far more importantly, their lives at stake.
Yeah, I think the American public is now confused. I mean, Biden is trying to get Afghanistan off the front page, Andrew, and try as he might, it's kind of sticking there, mostly because there's hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 people stuck on the tarmac in Kabul airport. There's controversy about whether the State Department is helping or hindering. I think the American people are right to be confused, and a lot of them are quite angry.
Well, I think we should look at this whole debacle as a cautionary tale, as in you should not, nation build. Everything that's happened over the last 20 years or since September 11th, it's a perfect reminder of why the foreign policy or the neoconservative policy has been a disaster for the United States. $2 trillion in Afghanistan, $1 trillion in the war in Iraq. You have soldiers everywhere scattered across the Middle East and around the world. You have Americans stuck in Afghanistan. Now you have the disaster of this withdrawal occurring. Everything that's happened since September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, we just have to remember that, you go after the target. In this case, it was Osama bin Laden, and then you get out. Why did the United States need to occupy Afghanistan, spend all this money? And then at the end of the day, you're stuck in the exact same place you were when the whole war started. The Taliban's back in power. It's completely asinine of what's happened over the last time. This massive superpower known as the United States, and then what are you left with? This backwards thinking terrorist group back in power.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. I think, frankly, it's embarrassing for the country, for the administration, and honestly, we didn't. If it had been up to me, we would have done more damage 20 years ago. But the optics were so bad. People were so worried we were going to look like the biggest bullies in the world. And sometimes you got to be the biggest bullies in the world to stop things from happening. We've just let them all regain power, and it's embarrassing.
Sarah, do you think we're more secure or less secure than we were 20 years ago? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I think it's like national security whack-a-mole. We plug some holes. We plug the holes at the airports and flights and vetting and the Patriot Act that has everybody up in arms, and we have more cameras everywhere. But there's going to be a loophole. There is always a loophole, and all they have to do is find it. So I don't think we're any more secure except for at the airports.
I think the U.S. is actually more secure because if you read the writings of Osama bin Laden, one of his main goals was to have the United States military in the Middle East and Afghanistan and the surrounding regions. Why? Because it's easier to target American soldiers, and then he wanted to bleed the treasury of all this money and waste all these American lives. So he accomplished his goal of getting Americans in Afghanistan. But will anybody learn from it? Probably not. And they'll just go on. The next president or the president after will just start this other war, and you're gonna have the repeat of what's happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and everywhere else, Syria,
Jim, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm inclined to agree with Andrew. I mean, having our troops over there, that wasn't necessarily keeping us safer. I know the whole mantra was we need to fight the terrorists over there so we don't have to fight them over here. I think that as far as Homeland Security goes, we have grown in that area. After we've removed troops, there is absolutely no way that our people aren't going to be monitoring the situation. And even President Trump, when he was trying to get the troops out, he said, we're still going to monitor. And if it looks like something's going down, we can always go back. Now that we have this president, though, I'm not so sure that would happen. But I still am inclined to agree that there are still people in the government or in our military and our intelligence agencies who are going to monitor the situation and ensure that this doesn't blow back on us. I hope I don't have to eat my words someday.
Jim, don't you think that this whole Afghanistan thing puts a pall over the 9/11 20th anniversary?
Yeah, and I read this morning that there are actually a lot of 9/11 families, the survivors of people that died in the 9/11 attack, who are telling Biden, "Don't come to these events. Don't come to our anniversary. Stay away." These are same people that are calling him killer in chief, which. It is harsh, but I had to kind of chuckle a little bit. I could only imagine Vladimir Putin sitting back here and getting a chuckle out of it after Biden called him a killer.
Well, he's getting heckled everywhere he goes. I mean, he was touring the storm damage, Ida damage up in New Jersey, and people were out in droves calling him names. And this isn't the happy, united, administration. He's in deep trouble with the electorate.
I think you used the right word, Sarah, when you call this embarrassing. He embarrassed the nation. And when this whole thing was starting to get closer, I wanted to defend Biden on this because I wanted to be able to say at least he did this right, because I agreed with what he wanted to do, get our troops out. But the situation was just it was beyond just having just a few snags here and there. It was horrible. And yes, it is embarrassing. This will be a stain on our history. It's going to be worse than it was when we left Vietnam. And so I can see why people are angry at him. On top of that, we lost 13 soldiers that we didn't need to lose.
Yeah, what I find interesting about Joe Biden is that every time he delivers a speech in Afghanistan, he's always talking about the rationale behind pulling out. If you look at the polls, most Americans agree of ending this war in Afghanistan, but he always avoids the main problem of the story. It was a withdrawal. So he's making an argument nobody's really making. And to attest to Sarah's viewpoint of embarrassment, I could if anybody watched the 2001 World Series when George W. Bush threw out the first pitch of Game 3, you watch that the clip and everyone's cheering, everyone's applauding, everyone checked politics at the door. But I can imagine today if Joe Biden would throw a pitch in the World Series, I'm pretty sure you'd have a lot of booing going on. But thankfully the Yankees aren't making the World Series, so you don't have to worry about that happening.
Well, he'd probably throw it to third base, Andrew. And the other
would be an
thing
amusing
is,
scene in of
I mean, I've got a weird uneasy feeling in my gut, and it's not as bad as watching the second plane fly into the towers when I was fixing to fly from Indianapolis to Phoenix that day. It's not that bad, but something big is brewing, and that's just my gut after living 58 years.
They have been warning about potential attacks coming. I mean, I'm not trying to fearmonger because this happens every year, but I mean, they have been warning about increased activity in Al-Qaeda networks and circles and things like that. So I bet hopefully our people are on it.
I'm not afraid of it. I am not afraid of it, but I think it's coming.
Well, we did a poll at Liberty Nation. We don't do a lot of polls, but we had more than 5,000 people participate in this poll. When you think about it, Rasmussen does a poll. Now there's a scientific, ours wasn't scientific, but they're sampling about 1,000 people. So when you think about it, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, your average poll doesn't break 2,000.
Yeah. And it was over 5,000 people, and they had a lot of themes. And one of the themes was people can't seem to forget Americans leaping out of the World Trade Center buildings. I mean, that is like indelibly burned into the national consciousness.
Yeah, I can't forget it. It's 20 years. It's a horrible day for a pullout anyway. It's a horrible day for this president to go anywhere as a memorial and honor anyone. And I feel something big is brewing. I just do. I don't worry about it, because if it does, it does. It happens. Nobody can seem to stop it. I can't stop it, but I think it's out there and I think it's coming.
I remember when I was a kid, if I turn on CNN, they would have this terrorist alert. They'd have red and yellow and green. So you wake up, you see you're fearful, saying, "Oh, we're on orange. You're on orange alert today. You got to be careful. There's terrorists." So I wonder if CNN will have that these days, or if it's just all about COVID.
Well, 20 years ago they kicked the anthill, and I mean it's 20 years later that scar still remains and that anger still remains.
Yeah, a lot of rage, a lot of fury, but in a strange twist on Winston Churchill's line, this was not Joe Biden's finest hour. At Liberty Nation, we honor all those who gave their lives for this country and those who perished when terror struck. All heroes in my book. Thanks so much for watching, and may we hold fast to these words. Never again. President Joe Biden has found himself in an ocean of deep and treacherous waters. In 8 short months, the border is completely out of control. The Taliban has Americans pretty much held hostage, and his campaign promise of curing the pandemic, well, we see how that's progressing. The country is frankly in chaos, and the numbers show Mr. Biden rapidly tanking in the polls. Biden now sits at 47% in approval ratings, and an astonishing 52% say he should resign. Recently, when the president trekked to New York and New Jersey, he was heckled by people mercilessly. Andrew, you have a lofty perch there in Toronto. What do you make of the math plaguing this president at the polls?
Polls? That's like saying, before you got on this program, you were taking a test, whether you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie? Come on, man. But that was a Joe Biden quote. But when it comes to the polling, if you comb through history since the era of Truman, every Gallup poll has shown the same thing. President's approval ratings slip within months of occupying the White House. Happened to everybody. Obama, when he moved into the White House, he started at 66%. Within a few months, it fell below 50%. Reagan, he came in with 60%, fell off to about, I think it was 38%, and then he regained his popularity in the following years. I don't think Joe Biden will regain any popularity. He's been a disaster so far within 8 months. But Democrat or Republicans challenging to maintain a higher approval rating when all eyes are on you 24/7, especially in today's 24/7 news cycle.
Sarah, is this one of those situations where Biden is going to do the limbo, as in how low can you go?
Well, we all know he can't do the limbo physically. And I think he doesn't care. And the other thing I think is he doesn't know. I don't think he understands how mad and unhappy the electorate is in this country over everything that he's basically touched in 8 months. I don't think he understands that the border is chaotic. I don't think he understands that Afghanistan bug out 101, dude. I mean, a fifth grader with a Tonka truck could pull that one off better. And honestly, I just think he doesn't know. And I think he's so shielded, nobody's going to tell him.
Oh, now wait a minute. He says it's a great success, right, Jeff?
Yeah, he says a lot of things, but he's not going to come back from this. And here's why. His performance and his team's performance is horrible. It's worse than Andrew Moran's impressions. That's how bad this whole thing is.
Oh,
That's mean.
He mishandles everything. You know I love you, Andrew. He mishandles everything. He mishandled the migrant crisis. We've got inflation going on. He's trying to get this whole ridiculous anti-gun agenda passed. He's everything he wants to do is not popular with the American public. He's kowtowing to the progressive crowd. He messed up Afghanistan. There is no situation that this president will not mess up. Like I said in the last segment, I wanted to be able to defend him on Afghanistan because I wanted to be able to say at least he got this right. I don't think I will ever be able to say that at any point in this man's presidency. It is shaping up to be worse than Carter. And I'm not exaggerating. These people are bad at their jobs. It's not just him, it's his team. His vice president, she's bad at her job. These are horrible. So I don't know what the country is in store for, but his approval rating is not coming back, and it's going to have a bad impact on the Democratic Party overall.
Well, Jim, Mr. Biden is protected by the media. He's their man. But, I sort of saw the tide turning a little bit during the Afghanistan debacle, withdrawal, exit, or great success, if you want to quote the president. Do you think that's going to last?
I don't know. I initially got the feeling that it wouldn't, that the media smelled blood in the water. But there were a few moments during Biden's speech where he was taking questions from the press where it was obvious that these hardball questions were actually pre-scripted and pre-selected, and that he had answers pre-written for them. So I don't know that the gloves are necessarily coming off.
Yeah,
was that when he admitted that he had to ask certain people, and then he said, "Oh, now I'm supposed to leave"?
Yeah,
at one point he said, "No, I think the question was," and corrected the reporter. I think it was the AP reporter. I could be wrong on that. Corrected him and read off the scripted question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Mr. Teleprompter in chief,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking that the press is probably going to, turn up the heat just a little bit, and in time for the GOP primary season. And then once they find out that, perhaps Ron DeSantis is the nominee, then they'll just throw softballs at the White House and act like, everything is great occurring in the Oval Office, but then turn all their attention on Ron DeSantis, whoever the Republican nominee is. So just so they can regain some credibility a little bit until the next election, 2024.
All right, Jim, I want you to address the elephant in the room. I mean, I wasn't making this up. Rasmussen polled 52% of Americans say he should resign. Now, of course, that leaves a problem that we have the cackler in chief, right. But isn't that, politically speaking, an amazing number 8 months into a presidency?
I feel like that shouldn't be a surprise, and yet it still kind of is. But But like you said, and like Jeff said a minute ago, it's not just Biden. This whole administration is insane, as far as I can tell, or they have some kind of deficiency of some sort. But for that reason, I actually don't want him to resign. Like, if we got to put up with these policies, I at least want the entertainment value of watching Joe Biden be the guy to say it.
Sarah,
I'm not even joking. Like, that is a serious.
Yeah. Now, Sarah, you really know politics. Don't you find this an amazing number?
I do. And I'll tell you where I think it's coming from, although I don't know for certain, but I think it's coming from those 80 million people who apparently voted for Joe Biden, and now they can't admit it anywhere to their friends, but they're going to admit it somewhere. They're disappointed. I mean, how can they not be disappointed? They're disappointed in this guy. And every liberal I know that I am friends with or relatives with, which is two, both on both categories.
You set that up like there were so many.
Yeah, they do not want to talk about politics anymore. It's just, nope, we're done. We don't want to. Let's not talk about politics. And they, I wonder why.
They were fed the biggest load of horse crap in a decade of media reporting.
They voted
and
against.
They ate it up.
They voted against a candidate and not for a candidate. But now they're stuck with this guy, and they made these decisions, and they were the ones that cast the votes, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit it. They do not want to admit it.
That's what happens.
They will admit it somewhere. And I think that's what we're seeing.
That's what you're stuck with when you, as Stephen Colbert put it, vote to keep the other out.
But I think this is more of an indictment of how people view the presidency nowadays. You know, too many Americans, or everywhere else too, they still think that the prime minister, the president, is this magical wizard who can just solve every single problem and grant every single wish. And then once this president occupies the Oval Office, and these people realize that no, the president isn't this apotheosis that can use fairy dust to create eternal peace and prosperity, then they say, okay, yeah, you know what, this person's terrible. I don't approve of them. Let's get them out of the office, and then hope the next president will be this magical fairy who is going to give everybody ponies and eternal popcorn.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's where we're at. I mean, the presidency was never supposed to be as important as we have made it. It was always going to be an important position, but it was not supposed to be as important as we made it. We essentially view the president in the way that people might view a king, and that's sad. That being said, I'm with Sarah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a Biden supporter right now. I mean, there was a time, and this might not be popular, but when Trump was in office, every time he gave a press conference, I'm like, please don't say anything crazy. Please don't say anything crazy. And then if he did, he did it. If he didn't, he didn't. But it was nowhere on the level as what Biden is doing. It's embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, and his handlers, his handlers must have heart attacks all the time. Every time he gets in front of a camera. No wonder he's walking away every time he gives a speech on Afghanistan and doesn't take questions. Like, he's just not doing well. And I actually think he is going to resign. I still stand by this. I think he will resign shortly after the midterms, which I don't want to happen, like Jim said, but for other reasons, because I think Kamala would be even worse if that's possible. It would be the worst possible situation. That's why when people talk about impeaching him, I'm like, no, don't impeach him. I mean, be careful what you wish for, because you know who's going to take over.
I would say, Jeff, that he will. I mean, if we're hypothetically speaking, that if you're going to resign before or after midterms, you're going to want to do it before midterms so that the progressives drive the people to the polls. Progressives will drive that young voter, and Kamala is their queen. So I would say if there's any kind of strategy involved, or if they're just sitting around talking in the West Wing, like, how the heck do we get this guy out of there? Then it would be before the midterms.
Good analysis, Sarah. But what will happen in the coming days, nobody knows for sure. But Liberty Nation will keep you apprised of new developments with a strange thing, something called the truth, a novel concept for much of the media these days. Thanks so much for watching. We've talked about this for years. The big box media and the inbred pedigree publications tend to fit the facts to the narrative. Oftentimes, no one calls them out. But one hospital in Oklahoma cried foul after Rolling Stone magazine published an entirely false story. It seems they caught a whiff of a whopper, and instead of tracking down the source, that a local NBC affiliate used. They simply went immediately to print without verification. What was the outlandish claim made in Rolling Stone that had the leftist media salivating? Here it is. A rural Oklahoma hospital was turning away gunshot victims because the locals were taking a livestock dewormer to ward off COVID. Anything to make those in the heartland look stupid, I guess. So let's check with our local yokels that live in rural America. Sarah, you're up first.
What a bunch of horse hockey, as we say in the Booneyville. Yeah, that doesn't happen. First of all, there's not gunshot victims lined up anywhere in rural areas because we don't shoot each other for silly stuff. We just don't. We might fight each other and beat each other up. We might, talk bad about you at the local bar. We don't shoot you. That's just not what we do. So that statement was so egregious. That's what it caught my eye, was that particular statement. Like, what are you trying to do? Make us look like idiots? That doesn't happen. The other thing is, hello, pick up the phone, call the local station that you pulled this out of, and get the name and number and just run it down. It took me 5 minutes to make that phone call to that doctor. It took me 5 minutes to get the phone number and to make the call. Why didn't they do that? I don't know, but now they got egg on their face.
Jim, you live off the grid in the boonies like Sarah. What do you say about the horse dung Rolling Stone stepped in?
Well, first off, I just want to say I love this story. There's two problems. One, as Sarah kind of alluded to, is the just the lazy journalism. It's not even, they don't even change the headlines now or the wording in the stories. You can open 5 different links from 5 different outlets and it's verbatim the same story. But then the bias and what shocked me was that they didn't even care. Really, they put the little update in there. Oh, okay, well, here's the correction from the hospital. But then they left. We couldn't prove it. False story. Up. But what I love so much about this story, you guys and gals, is that not only was it just simply not true, because no, there weren't gunshot. I mean, who in rural America thinks there was actually gunshot patients lined up at a rural hospital? No one. That's city folk stuff. But then not only was that situation not actually happening, but the hospital clarified that they had not treated a single case of ivermectin overdose.
Well, Andrew, where did they come up with this stuff?
Sorry, I feel a little bit hoarse.
Oh my gosh.
Go back to the impressions, please. Go back to the impressions. That was violence. You just chose violence. That was violent.
But, just to clarify, what's interesting too is that they never issued a retraction. They only issued an update. But let's stop horsing around and just call it what it is. Fake news. Oh. This is the complete personification of fake news. But one thing I find interesting also about the story is that myself and Jeff, we patronize Twitter all the time. We're part of the Twitterverse. The platform never took action on these tweets that promoted this fake news story. Usually when something goes viral and it disagrees with it, or if they find it false, it will slap a misleading label on it or call it fake. But the company never did this. Rachel Maddow, Joanne Reed, they post this news article and nothing was ever classified as misinformation. And now other members of the press are still trying to give this story some legs by saying it could be true. Daniel Dale, he's a CNN fact checker and he's a former Toronto journalist from back in the day. He claimed that the at least one Oklahoma hospital had patients who had poisoned from ivermectin, but he never, he never just dismissed the story and said it was fake. So members, I guess, everyone's crowding together and saying let's try to protect this Rolling Stone publication.
There's only a couple of hundred, 300 or 400, I think, that have across the nation of ivermectin poisoning. And I can guarantee you it's not anybody around here. These are the yahoos that go into their pet store down the road and buy dewormer and think they can use that. We know what's in it. We know it's for animals. The other thing that really ticked me off about this, they used a picture taken in January at an Oklahoma hospital, people all bundled up, and they're saying, and they relabeled it as people waiting in line to get in because there's so many people being poisoned. Well,
apparently the ivermectin poisoning makes you really cold.
Yeah, it makes you cold because Oklahoma in August, September. Yeah, it's hot and sticky. People would be wearing flip-flops, grossing me out, but they'd be wearing flip-flops.
Our favorite socialist that we talk about from time to time. Oh, AOC, I think it was, that said that it's more important to be morally right than factually right.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about for these people.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, usually when I talk about the media, I tell people the media typically lies by omission and not by commission. It means that they lie by leaving stuff out, not by making stuff up.
Yeah, it's the easier one to excuse.
Yeah, but this story is a horse of a different color because in this instance,
I saw that.
There we go.
In this instance, here I'm going to tell you what happened. Here's what happened. These people got so eager to create a narrative about ivermectin because of Joe Rogan, and that they didn't even bother to do that 5-minute phone call like Sarah said. They wanted to make hay so bad that they threw all their supposed principles out of the window because they don't care whether it's true or not. They have no shame. They have no principles. These are not journalists. These are left-wing activists, and they have no problem lying to the American public. Even when I was at a conference this past weekend, so I wasn't even able to really keep up with the news like that. I saw that headline, and I thought, okay, yeah, that's fake. That's fake. I didn't even look into it. I knew it was fake. Yeah. I didn't even make the whole rural connection thing. I just knew it was fake. There was no way that their claim was true. Ivermectin isn't a thing like that. Like Sarah said, 300 across the entire country. Come on now. Just because Joe Rogan used it as part of a cocktail of medical treatments that he used to deal with COVID-19. And it's gotten so bad that even he's thinking about suing CNN for pretending that he was taking horse dewormer, that he was actually using medication that is intended just for animals. It's
because
absurd.
There is actually a human ivermectin.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't taking horse paste. He wasn't taking horse medicine.
You know what people who have horses realize? That those things weigh like 3 to 5 times as much as us. I mean, no one's going to take a freaking horse dose of dewormer and expect to be okay. That has a horse.
You have to twist the thing. You have to hold the mouth open. You have to squirt it in, and then you have to hold the mouth closed.
Yeah, I don't understand the press's hatred for ivermectin. If you go back at September 2020, PBS had this great story. It was a factual story. There wasn't bias. It just talked about how some doctors in the United States, they're testing ivermectin. They want to see, they were so desperate. They were trying things, and they looked at the remaining possibility of how this could help treat COVID. But nowadays, these COVID cultists are so obsessed with the vaccines that they right away they poo-poo everything if it's not the vaccine. Why can't we just celebrate anything that can help treat your COVID symptoms? Why do we have to just go for one?
Because they don't care about COVID deaths. They don't care about people dying from COVID. They care about the politics of it. They care about being able to control people. They don't care about how COVID is affecting people. Otherwise, Andrew, you're right. They would be celebrating that something actually helps, even if they think that vaccines are still better.
I'm not even so sure that it's about vaccines. I think it's less about the what and more about the who. Hydroxychloroquine. Why was that vilified? Donald Trump. Ivermectin. Why is that being vilified? Joe Rogan.
Yep.
Also, ivermectin
that really is the only reason, by the way. That is the only reason.
Also, ivermectin is off patent, so a lot of these pharmaceutical companies they wouldn't be making as much money as they do off of the as they're making now with the COVID vaccines.
Hey, not if you can get it at the feed store.
Right.
All right. Well, let me just say that this Rolling Stone story exemplifies everything that's wrong with journalism today. Thanks, panel. When Joe Biden took office in January, he took pen to paper and immediately halted construction of President Trump's big, beautiful border wall. Well, as you can imagine, that left a big, beautiful hole, coincidentally in the most vulnerable stretches of the wall in New Mexico. A gap that accommodates the size of a semi is now allowing thousands to cross without detention. And now Border Control agents are scrambling to keep the pace with illegal alien breaches. Jeff, what is going on in this specific area of the border? Are agents really expected to do what the Biden administration refuses to do?
Yeah, I guess so, Lisa. I mean, ever since this whole situation started, I've been thinking this is a remarkable level of incompetence. I no longer think that. At this point, it's not incompetence. They're doing this on purpose. They want illegal immigrants to come to the country. Maybe I'm getting too tinfoil hat, but we all know the electoral advantages that the Democrats want that result from both legal and illegal immigration. And this situation has been handled so horribly that I can't rationalize thinking that this is being done on accident. It just doesn't make sense. Our Border Patrol agents, our Border Patrol agencies are stretched thin, and they have been for a very, very long time. The situation with the unaccompanied minors was bungled, and even some of them were abused. It's been handled poorly on every single level, and I don't know where this is going to lead. And again, like I said, we're not even past year one of Biden's presidency, so we're going to have at least 4 more years of this. This crisis is going to extend, and even if the caravans slow down, which I don't think they will, because why would they? They should be coming now because they have a president who wants them here and wants to let them in without vetting them and all the other the issues that come with it. So my thing is, yeah, this is going to continue. Our Border Patrol agents, they're doing the best job they can do. They are very competent, but they're not Superman. And Biden's allowing this hole in the wall to remain. It's part of the plan.
Sarah, you know a few people down New Mexico way. What are you hearing with your ear to the ground?
I have a good friend in the very close area of where this is all taking place. He has a big ranch down there, and the citizens have offered to show up and help Border Patrol. They're wiring tires up to keep people out. They're welding on their off hours. They are helping, try to put a plug in the hole. It's a big hole, and nobody's watching it. Nobody seems to care. Border Patrol is overrun. They can't keep up with it. And unless you want to see people holding groups of people, at gunpoint, which is a great optic, they've got to do something. Literally, they're putting tires and old chain link fences trying to cap a hole. It's awful, and the citizens are overwhelmed and overworked and being marauded. Not every illegal immigrant is a criminal, but the ones that are, they steal from them. They steal their cars. They come on their property. It's a mess down there. This is not an every now and then kind of situation. It's an every day, every hour kind of situation for those people.
Andrew, this business of putting the finger in the dike, I mean, this is not working. We have a very dysfunctional system down there.
Yeah, I'll restate my position when it comes to the border. It's all about economics. The chief principle of economics, when you subsidize something, you get more of it. Over the last year, there's been such a huge investment being made in illegal immigration, particularly at the state level. New York recently, they're spending $2.1 billion to give $3,000 cash payments to 300,000 workers. That's quite an incentive enough to sneak through the border. Colorado, they recently passed legislation. They're going to give housing vouchers, housing assistance, all these other real estate subsidies to illegal immigration, to illegal immigrants. At the federal level, the White House, they're giving undocumented eligible students about $35 billion in emergency aid, so they can use things like housing and food. So this is such an incentive to cross the border, whether there's a wall there or not, or whether there's armed gunmen or not. There's all this incentive to cross the border. If you remove this subsidy, if you remove this incentive, you're going to have a huge decline in illegal immigration long term, not just over a couple of years.
Jim, do you think this is, really going to be impacting our homeland security?
Oh, yeah. It already is. Like you said, there are people being robbed, they're being killed. This is bad for Americans, especially at the border. This is bad for the immigrants. Kelly Ballard wrote a story, was it last week, where she was talking about the rise in deaths of people trying to sneak across. I think it was like 383, I think it was. From January to July, which is a 50%, almost 50% increase from the entire year of 2020. So almost 50% more in 50% of the time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're actually seeing record numbers, especially in July. Some of the hottest months of the year, especially in my state, Texas, and Arizona, and New Mexico, and everywhere else. The numbers are going up. This is usually the time of year when it starts to go down because it's just too hot to make the journey. No, not right now.
No offense, but I don't want to be in Texas in July.
I don't either, but
or any of those states in July.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Well, Homeland Security doesn't seem to be a high priority with this administration. Let's hope they wake up and smell the survey so before it's too late. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks, panel. Well, folks, back by popular demand, Liberty Nation's game of political worst-case scenarios. This few minutes of irreverent fun allows our illustrious panel to choose the best option for survival or sanity. Okay, panel, let's pick a number from 1 to 5. Jeff, you're up first.
1.
Well, he always picks 1.
Except the time that I said he was going to pick 1. Then he had
except the one time. Yeah, exactly.
Obligated to change.
Okay.
Yep.
Jeff, you're up.
I'm gonna change it up, and I'm gonna go with 6.
What? You must choose between Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden as your partner in the annual 3-legged race. Oh, who do you pick?
3-legged race. Let's see. I would. I'll go with Pelosi. I'm not sure that Biden could survive that.
Well, he has trouble on 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and he weighs more than Pelosi. So if you have to drag that dead weight,
I would rather drag Pelosi than have to drag Biden. Yeah, I could pick her up or something.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder. Somebody was showing me something actually on TikTok the other day, and it showed like Biden careening down the steps of Air Force One. I mean, it was just so funny.
That was actually an earthquake, and Biden was the only thing that wasn't moving.
All right. Well, that was a tough one. Okay, Andrew, you get 2, 3, 4, or 5.
3.
3. Do. Who would you rather sit next to at a state dinner, Jen Psaki or Kamala Harris?
If I'm deaf, Kamala Harris. If I'm dumb, Jen Psaki.
Oh,
I love that answer.
Okay, well, you got to add, what if you're blind?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're both beautiful women, so I hope I'm not blind looking at them.
Yeah.
Oh, you kiss
Wow.
ass.
Are you kidding? Jen Psaki's beautiful. Somebody help me.
I think she's hot.
Andrew. But
but you think Kamala Harris is hot too.
She's hot too.
Oh,
now,
geez.
you guys are all.
What are you guys keeping your options open or something?
You guys are really.
Don't want to say that on TV.
All right.
I'm not commenting on that one. I'm a married man.
Sarah girl.
I'll take 4.
Sarah numero 4. Someone approaches you with verifiable and criminal dirt on the Clintons. Do you write it or do you pass?
Oh, hell, I ain't writing that.
Pass.
I wrote something a little off color about an arms dealer once, and I regretted the heck out of that for about a year. So yeah, I'm not going to risk being on the Arkansas list.
Oh.
If anyone's unfamiliar with that is a real list. Check it out.
It is a real list.
The website got taken down, but
it's a real list.
Okay, everybody, get your tinfoil hat. All right. Who's next? Jim. You get 4 or 5.
No, I just picked 4.
Nope, 2. I'll take number 2.
2. You always take the one I want. As an American gladiator, you have to wrestle a large animal to advance to the next round. Do you pick a 10-foot crocodile or Ilhan Omar?
That was not where I was expecting that to go. Omar. Well, I think my chances against her are a lot better than a 10-foot crocodile.
I don't know. I'd pick the crocodile. I think I could talk him out of any kind of damage and maybe he could team up with me and take her out in the corner.
Well, but if you take out the crocodile, at least you can get a nice handbag out of it.
Hey, and some delicious gator tail.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
One is left for me. Here we go. Number 5.
Wait a minute. Have we done everybody? One.
Everybody but Lisa.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
And I have not read these. So it's time for the Tunnel of Love ride at the Swamp Fair. Do you sit next to Bill Clinton or Joe Biden? Well, I think I picked Biden just because I'd rather have my hair smelled.
If you come out, if you pick old Slick Willie, you are not coming out the other end unscathed.
He is well known for other than hair sniffing, I believe. It's, we go back with Tara Reid and some other people that might want to talk about him.
Yeah,
it's dark in the tunnel.
And also his whispering, $1.9 trillion. I wrote the bill.
But Uncle Bill seems more aggressive to me. He looks like he demands certain things. I find him frightening.
Well, I guess we'll know if you come out of there with a black eye or whoever was easiest to throw over the side.
All right, guys. I love this game. We hope you all played along with us. It's all in good fun. We love to hear your political worst case scenarios. And for the next round, and thanks for joining us, pop on over to libertynation.com for a little bit of sanity, analysis, satire, and the very best of political humor. And don't forget to check out our daily conservative memes. They are super popular. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 for the year. For our post-production coordinator and editor, Frank DiOrio, and executive producer, Sarah Cowgill, I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters.